Genesis chapter 45, beginning at verse 1. Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him. And he cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So one stood with him while Jacob made himself known to his brothers. Joseph. And he wept aloud. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. Then Joseph said to his brother, "I am Joseph. Does my father still live?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near me." So they came near. Then he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are 5 years which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve and prosper you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and Lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. And I want to stop right there. I want to ask a question. Ask a question, but yet, knowing the text, Joseph was sold, yes, but God had a plan for him. But I want to ask you a question that I asked Joseph. Can you stand the pressure? Can you stand the pressure? As children of God, attempt to find ourselves through this maze of experience known as life, sometimes becoming lost and confused. One thing we must never forget, that is, God has a plan. Sometimes we are squeezed so much so until we become depressed. We feel like giving up. We feel like throwing in the towel as the winds come our way. When things happen in our careers and we become sick and we are plagued with diseases and Bombs are going off all around us. And when the death angel takes even our loved ones out of this world and takes them to see how long eternity is, I wonder, can you and can I stand the pressure? However, in all of this maze that we have to go through day after day just to survive, sometimes we earnestly and sincerely pray to God to take some of the pressures off of us. But just know you are being pressured because God has a plan. When we come to our end of our journey, God will give us that reward for the plan that he had for our lives. But I know, I hear you saying, just like I have said, and like one of the prophets of old said, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? How long will right oppress? How long will wrong oppress the righteous? How much more can the Christian sustain in the pressures of life that have been designed by the evil hand of Satan to kill us? How much of a victim are we going to stand to be and be somewhat like this prophet, this man of God, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers, by his own family, sold into slavery. But they thought they was getting rid of him, but didn't know that they was being set up for a blessing. Sometimes God will allow Satan to squeeze us so much until we can't do nothing but look up. And here the brothers saw out how they were going to kill or get rid of their brother, because just like some of us, they were jealous. Some of us are envious. They were full of themselves and felt like Joseph was the favorite one of Jacob. Amen. Do y'all know that? Amen. Do y'all know that there are people that are looking at you and saying, I wish I had what they got. I wish I had the faith that they have. I wish I could go through like they go through. But they just don't know, do they? What kind of life you have been living. We can know and testify to God's goodness, that he cares for us, and that through the jealousy and the resentment that we have sometimes for others, that God still blesses us and still cares for us. To make matters worse, look at Joseph. Joseph had a habit of dreaming. He was a dreamer. He dreamed strange dreams. And one day he told his brothers about his dream, that they would one day bow down to him. Now think about it, New Covenant. If someone came to you and said to you that one day you're going to bow down to me. One day you're going to be looking for my handout. You're going to be looking for what I have in my hand to be placed in your hand. Now, can you imagine that? As much as you got, as much as you have strived and worked for and paid for, and now all of a sudden they come and say, you know, you're going to give all that to me. Amen. But people who do not have a vision or have a dream is a person for destruction. If you have no hope for tomorrow, if you have no hope for next year, if you have no hope, where are you? You're lost. When you have lost hope, you might as well throw in the towel. Because what God is trying to get us to understand throughout all the things that are going on in the world today, with all the bombing, with all the threats of nuclear weaponry, and with all of the wars that are going on, with all the drugs, with all the HIV, with all of that, you still need to hold on to some hope. Because it always won't be like this. One day, when the brothers were full of themselves, they looked out and saw a caravan coming. And as that caravan was coming, they said one to another, we can sell Joseph and get us some money. Joseph think he's somebody. We'll show him who he really is. You know how people plot and plan against us? And as they plotted and planned against Joseph, they took his coat as they sold him to slavery. And they took his coat back to his daddy and said to his daddy that he had been killed, y'all, that he was dead. Amen. And his daddy wept over him. And the brothers looked at themselves and thought about that thing. You know, we really hurt Daddy. But he deserved it because he loved Joseph more than he loved us. Now maybe he'll love us just as much as he loved Joseph. We all want to be loved. We all want to have somebody that cares for us, somebody that would listen to our problems, somebody that would be there for us when all hurt, harm, and danger has come upon us. And here Joseph now is stricken from his family. And as African Americans, some of us know about that being pulled away from your family and placed in some other place. Joseph, the object of his father's love, was now a victim. But don't lose me now. Stay with me for a moment. Joseph, who had committed no crime. The only thing that he had done was told his brothers some of his dreams. He was a dreamer. He had a vision. He knew where he was going. He knew his purpose for his life. And some of us need to find out, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing every day? And it seems as though I'm not prospering. Could be you in the wrong place. Joseph was in the wrong place. Here he was sold into slavery to Potiphar. And as he got in Potiphar's house, there was somebody else there with him. Satan will always try a child of God. Now look at the child of God that's walking into Potiphar's house and look at Satan. I want to ask you this before we go into any further. I want to ask you again, can you stand the pressure? Can you stand the pressure? Now, brothers, can you stand the pressure? Now, let's get real. Potiphar's wife approached Joseph. She was a fine-looking black chocolate woman. She had long black hair. She didn't have a perm, but it was pretty and it was long and black. Because at that time, she went natural. And she approaches Joseph. And as she approaches Joseph, says to Joseph, you know, you sure looking good today. You know, my husband is away right now, and he won't know a thing if you just come on back here into my room and relieve yourself, and I'll relieve myself, and nobody have to know. Look at her. Joseph is looking her dead in the eyes. Say, you must be crazy, woman. Do you think I'm going to sleep with you and you, the head man's wife? She said, yeah, won't nobody know. And I'll make sure that you even get a promotion. Here he is in a predicament. She's Potiphar's wife, y'all. Y'all need to know that. She's Potiphar's wife. She approaches him. She grabs him. And she's going to make Joseph give her what she wants. And as she tries, that brother did what a lot of brothers need to do. He ran. He ran. One of the things my mama and my daddy told me, a good run is better than a stand any day. And Joseph knew that. So Joseph ran. And as he ran, she hollered. Hollered out of anger, but hollered so that Joseph would get in trouble. Now remember, here he is, sold by his brother's jealousy, and the resentment had caused him to be sold into slavery. And here it is, a woman's lust has gotten the best of the situation. And here Joseph is. Come on, preacher. He has nobody to turn to now. You want to see some pressure. Look at that pressure now. Now Joseph stands in front of Potiphar's wife. She done told Potiphar, he tried to rape me. And now Potiphar throws him in jail. Hello, somebody. That ain't nothing but pressure. Can you stand the pressure? I can't imagine that there were times during his journey from slavery to prison when Joseph must have asked the question, why me? What did I do? Why? And what for? Why am I in the place that I'm in? And sometimes when we get under pressure, we ask those questions. What are you up to now, Lord? Why am I going through these things? Why am I always crying? Why am I always walking the floors? Why am I always trying to give to God's people and to give to God? And it seems as though the more I give, the less I have. Look at the pressure. Every setback is a setup. Look at it. While he's in prison. And don't you know that some of us are in prison, but we're not locked up, but we're in our minds of prisons. We are locked up in our minds. Our minds are not large enough to get what God would really have us to get. Joseph displayed the same leadership qualities. While he was in prison, he made the best of being in prison. He made the best of a bad situation. When you're under pressure, I believe one of the things that we need to do is make the best of the precious situation that we find ourselves in. And in other words, what the songwriter said, praise your way through. If you can smile, if you can make the best of the situation, I guarantee you God will bless you with more. I'm going to show you. Here he is in prison, using his leadership qualities. He has displayed in Potiphar's house. And soon he became the head trustee. He is moving back up the ladder. People can't keep God's child down. If you are a child of the King, you don't belong in a pit. You belong in the palace. And we are to act like we are palace kids. While in prison, notice who he meets. While in prison, he meets the chief butler, the chief baker of Potiphar's house. They became friends. They had been locked up together because of something that his wife had done. But one night, they both had a dream. They didn't understand the dream, but they knew that Joseph was going around telling folks about their dream. That was his gift. Joseph has experience, and he has a long resume of interpreting dreams. If God gives you a gift, he gives it to you for a purpose. And if you don't use it for God's building of his kingdom, you're bound to lose that gift. Joseph interprets and spells out the dream for the butler and the baker. When the butler was restored to his position in Potiphar's house, the butler remembered Joseph. Be careful of the people that you meet along the way. If you do right by them, if you sow a good seed, there is a possibility that they will be there for you later. But if you don't stop long enough to help them, you might lose a blessing. But some people, there's the other side of that. There are some people who will forget all about you when they have arrived. When they have gotten to the next level, they will forget who has helped them across that bridge. Amen. But God will remember. If we forget how we have made it this far, New Covenant, and us as African Americans, if we forget who has helped us to get where we are, there's a good possibility that we might repeat it later on. God has a way of making us remember. One night, about 2 years later, Potiphar had a dream. He didn't understand the dream. He even asked the fortune teller to come and interpret his dream. But the fortune teller couldn't. He couldn't find anybody to interpret his dream for him, but the chief butler overheard it and came to Potiphar and said to Potiphar, look here, I know you believe that Joseph was trying to rape your wife, but he can interpret your dream for you if you just get him out of jail. When the butler told Potiphar that, the king sent for him. Potiphar sent for him. Joseph interprets the Potiphar's dream. And Potiphar says, I perceive you to be wise and a just man, a man of integrity. Now that I see that you have a gift from God, and my wife has told other lies before, and it could be a possibility that she told a lie on you. And since that has happened, I'm going to make you a commander in my army. Look at it. He was in the pit, y'all. But now he's moving back to the palace. The 7 years that he was in jail, there were things going on in the land that others couldn't understand. But Joseph understood it. There were years of famine, just as he said would come to pass, because Potiphar had dreamed it. Sometimes during the 2nd year of the famine over in Canaan, an old man by the name of Jacob, who had 11 sons at home, went to the barley field and couldn't get any food because his food had ran out, for the famine had wiped them out. Look at God working. He told his sons, take the money and go to Egypt, for I hear there is grain there for us. And if we don't get any grain, we're going to starve to death. And there, that old preacher that used to say, I can't see Joseph in my mind or in my eyes, but I know he's still somewhere around. As he stood before the storehouse that day, the overseer, the sailor, the one that was keeping the grain, Joseph went down and checked on the grain, and when he saw a cavalry coming over that hill, he saw a head. Y'all know y'all can see your relatives coming. You can see your brother or your sister coming over the hill when nobody else can see them. You can see them. You know, that looked like Vincent coming over that hill. You know, he walking like his daddy. I know that's him. And Joseph began to line up and began to get ready because he knew that was his brothers coming. And as they came before Joseph, they stood and asked him for some grain, for some food. And they looked at him. They couldn't quite figure out who he was because he had changed. He had grew up, and God had changed him in such a way that others couldn't recognize him. His own family couldn't recognize him. Now look at God working, y'all. After he had questioned them, he sent them back home without any food. I like that. He had the power now in his hand. You know, I know that the Lord said, vengeance is mine. But, you know, every once in a while, we want to see him squirm a little bit. Just a little bit. After he had questioned them and sent them back home, they returned, bringing their youngest brother with them, Benjamin, back to Egypt. Joseph invited them to have lunch. Come and sit at my table. After they had supped together, Joseph stood up and said, take a good look at me, y'all. Tell me, who do you think I look like? What's the image that you see? What do you see about me that you have seen before? Do you remember me?
Come on, preacher.
And you know, sometimes folk will come to you that hadn't seen you in a few years, will look at you up and down and say, you know, I think I know you. But you don't really look like the person I think you are. What's different about you? Well, I cut my hair. One thing, I put on a little bit more weight, but there's something else about you that looks different. Look at Joseph. Tears coming down his eyes. He breaks down and cries, I'm your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into slavery, who you wanted to kill. I am the same man that had told you some years ago the dream that I had that you would one day come wanting stuff from me. And here you are. You want it from me. You want some food now. And tell me, is daddy still alive? I am the same Joseph you put in the pit. I'm the same Joseph that you took my coat, the very coat that my daddy gave you. You took it from me, and I don't know what you did with it. But that was my coat of many colors. People can do ill to you all they want to. But sooner or later, God is going to turn it around if you would just hold up under pressure. You must answer to God, who is the one that will help you stay under pressure and help you go through the pressure. But you got to know as you go through the pressure that God is working this thing out. I don't know how he's going to work it out. I don't know when he's going to work it out, but he is working it out for me. And look at Joseph as he is being worked out. They have to give him the money to feed his daddy's family and to feed them. I'm so glad that God has a plan for your life and for my life. I don't know what kind of game you have been playing all your life. I don't know where you have been trying to stick your claims, but you ought to claim the plan that God has for you. When we finish playing politics on one another, when we finish our screaming and hollering at one another, when we finish our tricks and our designs to get folk back, just know that God still has a plan for you. And he wants to work it out through you, but you got to be willing to hold up under pressure. There are times, I know, in each of our lives that we want to throw in the towel because we are ready to give up. But it's not time to give up yet. The battle is not yours. It belongs to the Lord. But you got to hang in there for a little while longer. They meant it for evil. But look at God. God turned it out for good. He took the baby of the family where the baby would have to allow others to come and bow down their knees to the baby. The least, new covenant, the least God will raise up to be the leader. And I'm so glad that God has a plan for my life and your life. For Jesus came into this world with the plan of God, with the plan of salvation. When Satan declared that he was going to captive men, he was going to have all men bowing down to him, God sent a redeemer into this world, wrapped in love and wrapped in grace, wrapped in truth. God stepped across the time and was born as a baby in a manger, born in Bethlehem, reared up in Nazareth, stood 5 trials in 4 different courts, and went to Calvary. And as he was on Calvary, he hung, bled, and died for each of us. But God is working out a plan, y'all. And they put him in a grave, and they was wanting him to stay in the grave because they didn't believe that he was the Christ. But 3 days later, he showed them who was who. He showed them that I got all power in my hand. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad that he got the power. He got the power. He got the wonder-working power. God has a plan for us. We just need to stay in the squeeze and be squeezed out in his plan. Our redemption has already been paid. So now it's up to us to live out the plan. I don't know about you, but I want to live in God.